Coaching as Benevolence, a podcast for people who are curious about using coaching for self-development. I'm Erin with Roots and Wings Grief and Loss Coaching.
And I'm LaShawn with Michelle Sage Place Positive Intelligence Coaching. Today, we're happy to have a guest. Morgan Holliday is the hands and heart behind Morganize It, helping clients clear the clutter and bring calm back into their homes. She specializes in supporting people through life's transitions, downsizing, moving, or navigating loss with compassion and practical expertise. For Morgan, organization isn't about perfection. It's about making space for what truly matters. Whether someone feels overwhelmed or just needs a place to start, she's there to bring order to the chaos, one step at a time. Her services include packing, unpacking, moving, decluttering, organizing, space planning, and grief support. So, Morgan, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything you'd like to add to the introduction that we just shared? And tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. Like you said, I own Morganize It, and I also own Morganize It Moving. So I do all things moving, packing, unpacking. I now have my own moving company with a moving truck, so we can actually do all of the moving as well. So I am in a lot of people's homes all the time, every day, in some way organizing their house and decluttering. So that is what I live, breathe, eat, sleep is organizing.
Oh, that's lovely. So tell us about your journey. How did you get to Morganize It and also owning a moving company?
So it started actually when I was really little. At around 8 years old, my mom created her own business. She was a bookkeeper. And so at a very young age, my mom was a perfectionist. So I learned how to file, organize her desk. I learned how to pay bills and write checks and all of that stuff. So I was her little helper. I also learned how to network at like age 12. So I was always in that. And then she would come to my room and tell me, "Oh, you're Morganizing again," because I was constantly rearranging my room, my clothing. I was doing color coordinated, all different things. And so I lost my mom in 2017, and then I lost my dad about 3 years ago. And so the loss of two parents at such a young age, I'm in my 30s now, but losing them at that age, I was like, I really want to help people through this process. They're grieving, they're having to clean out their loved one's home, because I had to do it twice and it really sucked. And I had such a talent for organizing, decluttering, sorting, all of that. And then with my passion, my experiences. And so I created Morganize It after my mom telling me how Morganized I was. And then this kind of evolved into helping people pack and unpack. I'm really, really good at moving. I've moved so much. My ex-husband was in the military, so we moved a lot. I got really, really good at it. And I actually kept having to refer out the moves that I was packing and unpacking for. And I was like, you know what? I want to also do that. So I bought a moving truck this year and created Morganize It Moving.
I love that. And just how you also have a clear passion and mission with your organization. It's about the moving, but it's about so much more than that. The grief and the decluttering. And I will say when my home is a little less cluttered, I just feel better. So you're also about helping people feel better and really all about that whole health perspective. So I would love to know a little bit more about that and your work and how you do that and maybe a client success story with that.
Yeah, I've been told I'm the stress buster. Like I take stress out of people's lives in some way, whether that's just organizing their kitchen or decluttering after they've lost somebody or packing for their move. It's all about taking the stress off. I really try to use my knowledge, my talent, and my passion to take that burden off of somebody. And I'll tell you about a really large success story that we did last month. It was a move into a 7,500 square foot home. First home I've ever been into that large. It was massive. We did it from start to finish. helped with like the decluttering, making sure that we weren't taking anything, moving it that wasn't needed, broken, unwanted. Fully packed the entire house. I actually had a crew of 9 people throughout this entire process that helped with the packing. We moved the entire home the next day. And then the third day, it was fully unpacking, rearranging furniture, all the boxes, all the paper was completely gone. It was as if they had been living there for a year. They were fully settled in. Yeah, so that was an amazing success story that we did using my services, my moving company, the whole thing. Yeah. And then a little success story that I did actually just the other day. It was a lady who had lost her mom. They had bought her a townhome. She had lived in there for 20 years and just never threw anything away. So me and my teammate went in and sorted through, made sure we kept everything that the siblings would want. Maybe the grandchildren might want some things. We took 4 loads to donate. And a bunch of stuff to the dumpster. And the townhome is now ready for however she wants to move forward with that, whether it's selling, renting it out, whatever that is. But I love helping people clean out after they've lost somebody because I'm like, I've been right there with you. I'm here to hold your hand through that process.
So those are great stories, especially the one about just moving that family into their home. And I just trying to imagine moving in and feeling like I've been there for a year. That's a dream. I'd love to live.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk us through, like, when you meet a client or if people are referring their friends and acquaintances to you, like, what are you looking for in clients?
Yeah, I have such a wide variety of clients. I have people that I've helped pack and they've moved to a different state, so I don't see them again. I have clients that have been with me for almost 2 years. I help them open mail. I help them pick up after their kids, help them just reset their home like on a weekly basis. I have heard and have been asked this several times, how do I introduce you without offending that person? And it's not so much about their space, their stuff. Obviously, there's zero judgment from me. Every house kind of to me is like a project. I don't go in thinking, oh my gosh, look at all of the stuff that you have. It's more of like, how can I help you? Where do you want to start? And what are your goals? So I usually tell people, if you're introducing me, you can just tell them that you know me personally. I am a trusted professional organizer that you can have in your home. I am not ever looking for perfection. It's actually something I've struggled with all of my life, is that I try to be perfect, but I never implement that on my clients. We strive for excellence, not perfection. We get as good as we can. I want their home to feel calm, a space that they want to be in, taking the chaos out, decluttering it. So yeah, usually it's all about the trust when people are introducing me. I know Morgan, I trust her. You can have her in your home.
Yeah. I like what you said there with those last 3. I know her. I trust her. She can be in your home. And I think that is, I like when those handoffs are short like that, but also impactful. And that's what that sounds like. As you've been talking throughout, I just keep thinking of this concept of letting go and how that relates to coaching in particular. We do help clients let go of, whether that's belongings, right? Or also certain baggage that's not helpful to them. And it's not about fully, letting go in a lot of ways. It's about, like you said, embracing that imperfection and finding some meaning and hope to move forward with. And just curious to know a little bit more about all those different types of, I guess for lack of better words, metaphors that show up in your work, like letting go, or then your, burn the boat philosophy that we're going to be talking about.
I actually call them Morganisms.
Oh, cool.
Some of my clients have actually told me after like 1 or 2 sessions, they're like, you're in my head. I can hear you telling me, all of these things. So I have a few little things that I walk people through. One of them is when you're letting go of something, there's this kind of hold because you spent the money on it. I've spent $200 on this item and I feel like if I let it go, I'm burning the $200, and walking them through you spent the $200 however long ago. That's not coming back, whether the item stays or goes. And so that's one of the things I talk people through a lot as well. And then I guess to get into kind of the burn the boats concept, it's really all about not having a backup plan. You're just going in 200%. You're giving it your all, and there's no safety net there. So that does sort of apply when I'm with clients. I'm like, we're all into this. We don't really have any kind of backup plan here. We're going 100%. We're cleaning this out. We're packing this house, whatever it is.
And how do your clients respond when you say that? What is the reaction that they have or the response they have when you mention that whole burns the boat, or what is it, burning the boat?
Burn the boats. Yeah.
Burn the boats concept.
Yeah. They feel a sense of, I guess, relief that they have, I guess, like somebody that they're looking up to, somebody to lead them. I'm holding their hand. I'm like, I've got you. Let's go. They trust me. They know that I have the knowledge. I've done this for X amount of time, so I know what I'm doing. So it's like they can kind of relief of, okay, I don't have to think so hard about what we're doing. You've got me.
When we were talking about burn the boat, where that came from, can you talk a little bit more about the concept itself?
Yeah. So it was during an Aztec war. Cortez had his soldiers. They went onto the island where they were fighting, and he literally set their boats on fire. So they had no backup plan. They had no way to retreat. There was nowhere to run. They could not get back on the boats and say, never mind. It was either fight or die. And that's where the burn the boats concept came from, was you put all of yourself into it. You eliminate all possibilities of retreat. So you are forcing complete and absolute commitment to a course of action. So just for example, I said, I'm going to create a moving company. I don't have a backup plan. What if it fails? Well, then it fails. It's either fight or die. So it's complete and total dedication to what you're doing. I don't have a backup plan for what if Morganize It doesn't work out? Then there's nothing. I don't have anything to fall back onto. I don't have a safety net. And so when you are willing to sacrifice your safety nets and your backup plan, you can put way more into what you're doing. If you have a safety net, if you have my parents will take me in if this doesn't work, or I have my grandparents' inheritance, whatever that looks like for you, whatever that backup plan is, when you have that, you don't ever fully put yourself into it because it's always in the back of your mind that there's a plan B. So you need to remove all of the other alternatives for what you're doing. There is nothing else. It's either this or nothing.
Yeah, that's a really I don't know, it's like one of those extreme ways of motivating yourself to just put your all into something, knowing that's all you have. I like that idea. So I want to go back to the idea of, that you are working with people in their home and where trust is so important. Can you talk a little bit about how you build trust with clients from the beginning all the way through the process?
Yeah. So one of my biggest ways of getting clients is word of mouth referrals. It's so much more powerful, important when somebody says, hey, I know you've been looking for help with your home, whatever that is. I know Morgan personally. I've used her. My other clients have used her. You can have her in your home. So that's huge right there. That already sets me up for, a higher level of trust before I even meet somebody. But before I go into somebody's home, I do sort of a consult a few different ways. I have people that text me. They'll send me photos. They call me. I get to know them over the phone. They get to know me. Or I can go into their home in person and kind of walk their space. I am very upfront with people about like, I am not judging your space. This is more of a project for me. I like to get to know my client more than their stuff. For me, I can organize in my sleep. That's not the most important thing to me. It's the person that I'm dealing with. I want to know who they are, how they function in their home, what are their priorities, what are their goals for their space, how do they see organization? Are they a visual person? Do they want everything hidden? So there's all different types of questions I ask people. So I feel like once they get to understand that I'm not judging them, we're not looking for perfection, and I am really interested in them and not trying to take control of their space, that really unlocks another level of trust with us, with me and my client. So that really helps that I get to know them, they get to know me, on a more personal level. And then as we start to work together, they see that the things that I've said are actually true. I'm not there to like throw all of your stuff away and make your house look, magazine perfect, unless that's like what they want. But when I actually do the things that I say, that's another level of trust, that we've added on.
Yeah, and trust in coaching itself is such a key concept to the work that we do with our own clients. And the way that you talked about your examples of trust here, relate directly back to coaching, whether you're coaching someone with a life challenge or just strengths-based coaching, or even in my experience with grief support. Like you said, it's giving the control back to the client. It's not that we have the answers or that we are this there's like a power imbalance. It's
Mm-hmm.
right. All the power is situated with the client, and the goal is to just help them bring that out of themselves so that they can actualize it and use it a little bit more consistently, a little bit more intentionally. And I see how this relates a lot. And I think spaces are so interesting because they do hold so much underlying meaning, right? It's not just how organized does this look, but it's also like everything in the space. Your values show up. What do you buy and why do you buy that? And how does that relate to your values? So I'm sure you even have some of these coaching conversations with people. And so I know values and home organizing go together. What has been your experience with people and them sharing just about their values and how that relates to their stuff?
So I find a lot in people's homes that they're not necessarily wanting to buy all of this stuff. It's that they've lost it in the clutter. For an example, I had a lady who had probably almost 100 tubes of lipstick. She didn't really necessarily mean to buy all of that, but because her bathroom was so unorganized, she kept losing the new ones that she bought, and so I feel like people feel gotten into this situation in their house or in their space, and just telling them it's okay. It happens to all of us, and trying to put a system in place that works for people. And then I also find with grieving that the holding on to the coffee cup isn't really about the coffee cup. They need to tell the story to a stranger, to me, of why the coffee cup is important. Their mom used it. It was the one that was in the kitchen every morning, whatever that story is. And I can see it in people's faces when they're like, oh, okay, I got the story out of my system. I told somebody. Now somebody else knows why it's important, and then they can let go of the item. So that's a huge one I find a lot when going through sentimental things as well. Yeah. And then, getting to know people, how they function, what's important to them in their home. Do you want this to be visible because you kind of are an out of sight, out of mind person? If you put it in a cabinet, it's going to disappear out of your mind. Just different things. Everybody is so different that I work with. And that's what's so fascinating to me. Every day is totally different. Every house I walk in is different. And I will walk into somebody's home that is actually cleaner than mine, and will say, I'm so sorry for all the clutter. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you should see some of the houses that I see. Everybody apologizes for their space. And I think that's kind of funny sometimes. Hope I answered your question.
Yeah.
It's great because you can hear the joy in your voice when you talk about what you do. And I would love to hear like some of the things that you just like really bring you joy in the work that you do and then outside of the work that you do.
Like I said, I could Morganize in my sleep. That is so second nature to me because I've been doing it since I was so little. For literally 30 years, I have been this person. The thing that brings me the most joy, I will take whether I post it or not, I take a before picture. And then when we're done, I'll take an after picture. And because sometimes when you're in that space and you're organizing it and you're throwing things away and you're moving things around, you kind of forget what it looked like before. And so I'll show that person the before picture. And then we're standing in the after, and the shock on their face of like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe what we've done in 3 hours, and just them walking around and thinking, oh my gosh, this is my new office. This is my new basement, whatever the spaces that we've been in. And they're like, this is so fun, because it's so daunting to people to think that, okay, I've got a stranger coming into my house. They're going to be touching everything in my space. They're digging through my underwear drawer, they're digging through my junk drawer, whatever it is. And then we start working. And then at the end, they're like, I am so happy that you were here. You've changed my life. I've heard that a lot. I'm not going to cry, but I hear that so much. They're like, you have helped me in more ways than you can imagine. And that touches me so much when somebody says that to me. And then one story that I have to tell you about that stays with me and I think about a lot is I worked with a mom that had a special needs kid. So sweet. He's at home all the time, and that's where he did his homeschooling, was in the office downstairs. And it gave him a lot of anxiety because there was stuff everywhere. There were papers on the floor and just old crayons, and just you couldn't even really sit at the desk. So I spent 3 hours with the mom, redid the entire office space. And then he came down and the smile on his face, and he said, I have a space to do my homework now. And I lost it. I was like, oh my God, that's why I do what I do, is for people to see, that their space can be a calming place that you want to sit in. And I love that so much. And that's why I do it every day, all day long.
Well, it sounds like a calling, having this understanding from age 8 and then continuing on this career path. I'm not quite sure exactly what your career background is, but it sounds like it's just been a pretty clear linear path in terms of your work. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so I've been in veterinary medicine. I worked for an orthopedic surgeon. I have built houses with Habitat for Humanity. Like, I have done so much, but in everything that I have done, it has been organizing a space. When I was the office manager and surgery scheduler for an orthopedic clinic, I literally would clean out drawers and, organize the office space, fix the patient rooms. Even in veterinary medicine, I was organizing all of the medicines. I've always brought that part of me into everything that I've done. Even when I volunteered for Habitat for Humanity, I was the one that sorted through all of the donations. I was the one that did it the fastest and made the best decisions, and that was 20 years ago, and so I've just always been that throughout my whole life, no matter what kind of career field I've been in. Even when I was busy doing other things, I still helped family, friends, colleagues packing for their move, or going in and helping with their office. I've always just been that person.
And I guess with that, I was curious too, have you had people pull that out of you? Or was that truly this, yourself, this is your path kind of thing?
Yeah, I've always known that. It's always been in me that has been my number one passion. And my parents had their own business. I just never thought, after losing my mom, I never thought that I could have my own business without her here. She was a bookkeeper. She did all of that stuff. And I was petrified of starting my own business because I was like, she's not here to help me. She's not here to tell me, okay, what did you do? I was 8 when she did that, so I can remember. But, I still find myself asking her, okay, what did you do? How would you do this? And I'm wishing that I could call her. But I've always known that that's something that I wanted to do. It was just taking that leap of faith a few years ago, saying, I really don't want to work for somebody else. I want to put my talent and my passion together and helping people and doing it for myself and not working for other people that I've been so underappreciated for so long, working at different offices. And so I just took that leap of faith and did it. And I think that she can still see me, and I still think about, okay, what did she do when she did her business? Like, how is she doing it? Yeah, it would be real nice if I had my parents here to help me, because they had their own thing too, but I'm doing it. And that's the other part of the burn the boats too, is I don't have parents as a backup plan. I don't have another career path as a backup plan. So I'm 200%. When I show up at a client's house, you get 200% of me. I am there with them the whole time, engaged, encouraging, all the things.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That the image that story brought to my mind. And speaking of minds, one of the things that I really am curious about, Morgan, is when you look at things that you're an organizer, and do you have a particular strength when it comes to patterns, or what is it about organizing? What's the key to organizing? Like, if someone who doesn't have that talent, it comes naturally to you, it's not innate. What are some tips that you could share with people like me who have no mind for organizing?
Yeah. So a couple things. There's actually something in people's brains. So you either have the organizing brain or you don't. It's not that you're not good at it. It's that your brain literally is not wired to be that way. I've done a little bit of research on that whole concept. Like for example, my husband cannot fathom, he cannot understand how I do what I do because his brain just doesn't tick that way. He can't look at something and say, okay, all of the green shirts here, like organizing that way. So if you don't have that, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just that your brain doesn't work that way. When I'm helping somebody come up with a system for their home, a couple different things come to mind when you ask me that. I like to ask them, are you a visual person? So if I put your office supplies in a cabinet and close the door, is it going to be completely forgotten and you need to see them to remember that they're there? Or you're going to just go buy a bunch and just keep, this vicious cycle of putting it away, buying it because you forget about it. So that is one thing that I like to get to know about people is, are you a visual or do you want everything hidden? So then I can go from there as far as like, do we need products? Where do I put things? There are clear versus non-clear bins, different ways that we can organize based on if somebody needs it to be seen or out of sight. And then the other thing too is people will say, well, everybody has a junk drawer and it's totally fine. Sure, I guess. But if you go through your junk drawer and you've got an old pencil, some batteries, some cords, all of those things can have a home. You can have a little bin of batteries and light bulbs and cords in your laundry room or your storage closet, wherever that is. They can all have a little bin of their own with labels, batteries, light bulbs, wires, whatever that is. So you don't necessarily have to have a junk drawer. If everything has its place and everything goes back in that place once you're done using it, that is the biggest tip that helps people, is creating a space for every little thing in your home and then putting it back when you're done with it. That helps people stay organized longer, with that in mind, thinking, okay, where does this go? Done using it, put it back. It doesn't just get shoved in a drawer and then close the drawer.
Yeah, what you said about everything has its place, that can also be said about things that are not as concrete as, organizing your home, but just organizing your life and kind of understanding that different relationships have seasons and different experiences that we have in our life. This is one of the things that came up when we had Kyla Mitsunaga on our podcast, and she talked about family constellations and how the process of that is putting things in its proper place. And it really does. And one of the things that you said is when clients, after they go through the process with you, they say that you changed their life. I think there's a lot to be said about knowing where things go and having a place for them and having a system in place that's going to allow you to maintain that organization for those of us whose brains are not wired for organization. But yeah, that really resonates with me, that idea of everything has its place.
Yeah. And like you said, it doesn't have to be with physical stuff. We can kind of compartmentalize thoughts as well. Everything like you said, even relationships have their season. You may outgrow somebody, and that person was in a certain place and time in your life and they're not now, and that's okay too. So yeah, you can relate that to stuff and people. Yeah, not everything has to be, in your life right now just because you met them or you bought it or, whatever it is.
Yeah, I know. I'm curious. There's anything else, I guess, you want to add before we go into sharing our coaching nuggets of wisdom, which are just little nuggets that help us better understand the conversation and wisdom that we've gleaned. So LaShawn and I will share ours and then you can share yours. But just wanted to give you some time to maybe add anything else that specifically about your work or your personal life that directly relates to coaching.
I would say one of the biggest things I find with people is their hesitancy to call a professional. They keep putting it off. They think I can do this myself. They invite family and friends to help, which is not the best idea. So my biggest advice to people is to call somebody, me, another professional organizer, to help sooner rather than later. It becomes very overwhelming for people to think that they can try to do this daunting task themselves. And then when you get family and friends involved, it can get a little sticky. Some feelings get hurt. People don't exactly know how to do this process in the correct manner, in the right order. And then obviously family and friends are biased. They want you to keep all of the stuff, or the opposite I've heard, they want you to throw everything away and they don't care. So my biggest advice is just call sooner rather than later, meet the professional organizer, meet that professional in person, get to know them, and then get on their schedule sooner so you can start and not feel like you're drowning.
The work that you do in this space is so clear that you are so approachable and, like you said earlier, encouraging. And so not only find someone to help, but find someone like Morgan, right? Someone who will make the process run smoothly, but also will make you feel better about where you're at and where you're headed.
Yeah. Sometimes the work that I do in hours can take somebody days, weeks, even months, on their own. So cutting that time in half or even a fraction of it, is so much more helpful.
So should we move on to coaching nuggets of wisdom? A coaching nugget of wisdom that I have in mind is the idea of burning the boats. I think it's burning the boats. I will get this. But what does that mean to you? Because for me, when I heard that, I was like, the first thing that came to my mind was fear, like not having that safety net but then there was a little bit of a sense of liberation, as in, if you burn those boats, then there's no way back. You have to go forward. And what happens is you have that determination and that laser focus on your goal. And it really is kind of a liberating thought. So my coaching nugget of wisdom to our listeners is, what does that phrase or that concept mean for you? What does that bring up for you, Erin?
Yeah. And I think for me, it's a matter of, the letting go concept of what are you holding on to and what do you want to let go of? And how can you use a professional or have support that helps you not have to do this alone and do it in a more meaningful and intentional way? And Morgan, what about you? Did you have a nugget of wisdom that came up during the conversation?
Yes, it's more of, I guess, advice. And I want people to really sit there and think about no matter what you're doing, whether it's a new business or it's a project, or even if you're starting a new sport, the whole burn the boats, think about the difference it would be if you kept constantly thinking about your plan B. You kept constantly thinking about your backup plan, your safety net, and how much effort would you put in if you knew that those didn't exist? If you knew that there was no safety net, would you put in more effort than you would if you, in the back of your head, you're like, oh, well, if it doesn't work out, I can do A, B, or C. So I really want people to think about, no matter what you're getting into, stop always thinking about what's your backup plan. Just do it. Go all in and put 200% of yourself into what you're doing. And I think that you will see a difference in your success.
Thank you. We have been talking with Morgan Holliday of Morganize It, professional organizer. She works with people through life transitions, downsizing, moving, or navigating loss with compassion and practical expertise. She puts 200% of herself into her work. Morgan, can you please let our listeners know where they can find you?
Yeah, my cell phone is an appendage. It stays with me all the time. Everybody can reach me at 423-650-3580. I get phone calls, text messages all the time of, here's my space. How can you help me? Yeah, and then my website is morganizeit.net. And, you can go on there, learn about me. I have some stories on there as well. I have blog posts. So, yeah. Anybody can reach me anytime.
Thank you so much. This has been a great conversation about organization, letting go, and burn those boats.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Morgan.
Thanks for joining us for Coaching as Benevolence. I'm LaShawn with Michelle Sage Place, Positive Intelligence Coaching.
And I'm Erin with Roots and Wings, Grief and Loss Coaching.
Have a benevolent day.